It had been almost 7 years since Alina last saw Jason Carter. Back then, she was just a broke college dropout working at a small-town cafe, surviving on tips and leftover muffins. He, on the other hand, was already walking around like he ruled the world, flashing his designer watches, driving his daddy's Benz, and acting like being rich was a personality trait. They'd dated for a little over 5 months. To her, it felt like love. To him, she was just something to pass time with, something to laugh about behind her back with his rich buddies. She never forgot the last words he said to her when he dumped her in the cafe parking lot on a rainy Wednesday night. "You'll always be poor, Alina. I'm just being real. I can't date someone who lives off tips and dreams." She stood there soaked in the rain, heartbroken and humiliated, while he drove away, blasting loud music like she was just a joke to him. But that was years ago. Now Alina wore heels that clicked powerfully down glass hallways. She ran board meetings. She signed contracts. She was the CEO of Eura Media, one of the fastest-growing digital marketing firms in the country. And fate? Fate had a wicked sense of humor, because today, Jason Carter walked through her office doors, resume in hand, desperation in his eyes. He didn't recognize her at first. Why would he? Back then, she had frizzy hair, cheap clothes, and dreams too big for someone like her. But now she had sharp confidence, sleek style, and a name that echoed in business circles. "Miss Winters, your 2 p.m. appointment is here," her assistant Clara said through the intercom. Alina turned her chair slowly and smiled. "Send him in." Jason stepped in, trying hard to look confident, but he looked nervous. A little older, slightly worn down, with that fake charm he always wore when he needed something. He extended his hand. "Jason Carter, I appreciate you taking the time." Alina stood and shook his hand firmly. "Of course. I always make time for talent." He smiled, unaware. "I've followed Aura's rise. Honestly, I'd be honored to be part of your team. I've got 10 years of experience in marketing, client management, B2B. She cut him off gently. "You've worked at Rivet Corp and Maxwell Digital, right?" He blinked, impressed. "Yeah, you did your homework." "Oh, I always do," she replied, sitting down. He continued rambling about his projects and numbers, but she wasn't really listening. Her eyes studied him. How much he'd changed, and yet how little he'd actually grown. The same arrogance was still there, just hidden under desperation now. When he finally stopped talking, she leaned forward. "Jason, can I ask you something?" "Of course." She tilted her head. "Do you remember a girl named Alina from Brooksville?" His face changed instantly. I mean, maybe. I knew a few Alinas." She smiled, but her eyes were cold. "I was the girl you dumped in the rain behind Beans and Brews." He froze. The color drained from his face. Wait, that was you?" "Yes," she said, standing. "And now, I'm your CEO." He opened his mouth, but no words came out. "I remember what you said," she added, voice calm. "That I'd always be poor," Jason stammered. "Alina, listen. I was young, stupid. I didn't mean—" She held up a hand. "You don't need to explain. You came for a job, and I respect that. But here's the thing. I don't hire people who mock others for struggling, especially when I know firsthand what that feels like." Jason looked like he wanted the floor to swallow him. "I hope you find the right company, Jason. This one isn't it." And just like that, she walked to the door and opened it for him. He stepped out in silence. Clara looked up from her desk. "That was fast." Alina smiled. "Sometimes you don't need time to make a decision. Just memory." As Jason disappeared down the hallway, Alina returned to her office, sat in her chair, and finally let out the laugh she'd been holding in for years. Alina sat by the wide glass window in her office, watching the city skyline shift into hues of orange and gold. The hum of success pulsed all around her. Phones ringing, heels clacking, deals being closed floor after floor. But for a moment, all she felt was stillness. That confrontation with Jason had stirred something deep. Not pain, not satisfaction. Something heavier, like closure she hadn't even realized she needed. Clara knocked lightly on the open door. "Want me to bring you some coffee?" "Yeah," Alina said with a tired smile. "Extra strong. It's been a weird day." Clara grinned. "Weird or victorious?" Alina gave a small laugh. "A little of both." As the door shut behind her, Alina leaned back, letting her mind drift. Jason's face when he realized who she was. It would live rent-free in her head for the rest of her life. But beyond the ego trip, there was something else. A part of her, small, maybe foolish, had always imagined he'd change. Apologize. Grow up. But what she saw today? That same empty charm, the same smooth lies. Nothing had changed. 7 years ago, after that rainy night, Alina had hit bottom. She had no job. Her landlord kicked her out a month later. She couch-surfed with friends, sometimes skipped meals. For a while, she thought maybe Jason was right. Maybe she was just a poor girl with stupid dreams. But rock bottom does something to people. Some break, others rise. Alina had started with a freelancing gig, running social media for a boutique candle shop, then a bakery, then a wedding planner. Word spread. Her style was sharp, her copy clean, and her strategies got real results. Within 2 years, she was running a one-woman agency from her bedroom. The turning point came when a fashion startup went viral from one of her campaigns. Investors noticed. Clients poured in. She rebranded, hired staff, opened an office. Aura Media was born. And now, Jason had walked in asking for a job. It wasn't just revenge. It was proof that no matter how deep someone tries to bury you, if you've got fire in your chest and something to prove, you can claw your way back and sit at the table they said you'd never reach. Her phone buzzed. A message from Clara. "You've got dinner with Investors United in an hour. Car's downstairs." Alina sighed. No rest for the boss. She grabbed her blazer and walked out like nothing had happened. The restaurant was upscale. The kind of place where napkins were folded into origami and menus didn't list prices. Alina sat with 3 suited men and one woman who looked like she owned 5 companies before breakfast. It was all polished smiles and strategic small talk. "We're impressed with Aura's numbers this quarter," said Mr. Galen, the one with a voice like old money. "But I'm curious, what's driving your next expansion? You're dominating the digital ad scene already." Alina answered without hesitation. "Influencer commerce. We're building a system where content creators can launch their own brand stores within our network. Think Shopify meets TikTok, but with data-backed automation." The woman, Ms. Harrow, leaned in. "Sounds like you're not just building an agency anymore. You're building an ecosystem." "Exactly," Alina said, her eyes gleaming. "Aura isn't about selling ads. It's about changing the way influence turns into income." They nodded, intrigued. That's what Alina did best. She didn't just sell services. She sold vision. After dinner, Galen handed her his card. "Let's talk more. We might want in." Alina thanked him, shook hands, and walked out to her car. The driver opened the door, and she slid into the leather seat, tired but buzzing with momentum. As the car pulled away from the curb, her phone vibrated again. A message from an unknown number. "I didn't recognize you today, but I remember everything now. Can we talk? Please, Jason." She stared at the screen for a long second, then locked the phone and tossed it in her bag. She didn't reply. Not yet. The next morning, Clara walked into her office, looking amused. So, guess who sent his resume again? Alina didn't. Look up from her laptop. Let me guess. Jason Carter, now with a desperate cover letter? Clara grinned. You really want to read it? Go ahead. I need a laugh. Clara cleared her throat and read, Dear Ms. Winters, I just want to say I'm deeply sorry if I offended you in the past. I was young, arrogant, and blind to my own privilege. I admire what you've built. If there's any way I can be a part of Aura's mission, even in a small role, I'd be grateful. Alina blinked slowly. Wow, that almost sounded sincere. Clara smirked. Almost, she paused. What do you want me to do with it? Alina thought for a moment. Her first instinct was to delete it. But something inside her, maybe curiosity, maybe pride, wanted more. Bring him in. But not for a job, she said, standing. Then for what? Alina picked up her phone, pulling up her calendar. I've got a new mentorship initiative launching next week. He wants in? Let's see if he can start at the bottom like I did. Clara raised a brow. You want him as a mentee? No, Alina said with a sly smile. I want him to remember what it feels like to be underestimated. Jason walked into Aura Media's downtown office, looking like he'd just swallowed a gallon of pride. He wore a button-up shirt that didn't quite fit the way it used to, carried a leather briefcase that looked more style than substance, and plastered a smile on his face like it could hide how nervous he really was. He had no clue what to expect. Alina hadn't responded to his apology message, hadn't acknowledged his new resume, yet here he was, called in for an opportunity. Clara met him in the lobby with a tone so sweet it could rot teeth. Jason Carter, welcome back. Stood, awkwardly adjusting his collar. Thanks. I wasn't sure if... Follow me. She didn't wait for the rest. He walked through Aura's bright, buzzing office. Open layout, clean design, glass walls, young creative teams huddled. In meetings, a massive whiteboards covered in ideas and strategies. It was impressive. Far more advanced than the places he'd worked before. He suddenly felt small, like he didn't belong. Clara led him into a small room with a round table, a tablet, and a company handbook on the desk. All right, she said, spinning the tablet around to face him. You're officially registered as a marketing assistant in our mentorship pilot. He blinked. I thought this was a senior marketing role. Clara tilted her head with faux innocence. Oh no, Ms. Winters thought it'd be valuable for you to experience the program she once designed when she first started building the company. You'll be shadowing under mid-level execs, learning operations from the ground up. Think of it as immersive learning. Jason's face stiffened. So I'm an intern, Clara smiled. Not quite. You'll get minimum wage, with a chance to prove yourself. He swallowed hard. The Jason of a few years ago would have walked out. But today's Jason, he didn't have many options. His last agency let him go after a massive client dropped. He was 2 months behind on rent. His LinkedIn inbox was quiet. He needed this job, even if it came with a side of humiliation. When do I start? He asked. Clara checked her watch. Now. Jason was assigned to work under a sharp, no-nonsense team lead named Darius, a guy in his early 30s with zero patience for slackers and an eye for talent. On day one, Jason was told to sort campaign reports, update spreadsheets, and fetch coffee during meetings. He bit his tongue through every grunt task. This wasn't the role he imagined when he dreamed of being back in the game. This was humbling, painfully humbling. And every so often, he'd catch a glimpse of Alina walking past the floor, dressed in clean neutrals and commanding the room without even trying. Everyone respected her, admired her. Some even feared her. She wasn't just A CEO. She was a force. The woman he used to date in torn jeans and hand-me-down hoodies was gone. In her place stood someone who'd earned every ounce of her success. One afternoon, he was sent to deliver campaign edits to her office. Hands slightly shaking, he knocked. "Come in." He entered. She didn't look up. "Files from Darius," he said quietly, placing them on her desk. She continued typing, then finally glanced at him. "And your name is?" He hesitated. "Jason." Her eyes flicked back to the screen. "Right. Jason. The mentee." He opened his mouth. "Alina, Ms. Winters," she said flatly. He paused. "Ms. Winters, I just wanted to thank you for giving me this chance." She finally stopped typing and looked at him. Really looked. "You think I gave you this chance?" He froze. "Didn't you?" She leaned back in her chair. "No, Jason. You earned this opportunity the same way I did back then, by being underestimated." Her words hit like a punch. "You once told me I'd always be poor," she added, voice calm but sharp. "Now you're asking me for a paycheck. Life's funny, isn't it?" He looked down, ashamed. "I know I was cruel to you. I've thought about it more than you'd believe." She tilted her head. "Tell me, are you sorry because you hurt me? Or because now you need me?" He opened his mouth, but no answer came out. She waved a hand. "Back to work? And Jason?" He looked up. "You'll have to work 10 times harder to prove you're not the man you were." He left her office without another word, each step heavier than the last. The following weeks weren't easy. Jason was grilled, criticized, and overlooked. But for the first time in years, he started to listen. Really listen. Darius showed him how to structure client pitches that sold. Priya, a younger executive who used to watch his old campaign videos in school, now taught him how to track data analytics in real time. He swallowed his ego, day after day, took notes, stayed late. Slowly, the team stopped rolling their eyes when he spoke. One afternoon, Darius even nodded at one of his ideas. "Not bad, Carter. It wasn't much, but it was something." Still, Jason hadn't spoken to Alina since that day in her office. And deep down, he knew she was watching, waiting to see if he'd quit when the work got hard. Like she once didn't. Then came the event that changed everything. One of Aura's senior account managers walked out unexpectedly. Mid-project, just 2 weeks before a high-profile campaign launch. Panic spread through the office. Clients were calling, and the timeline was collapsing. Jason stayed late that night, working side by side with Darius and Priya. No complaints, no arrogance, just sweat and effort. They pulled an all-nighter, got the mock-ups rebuilt, redesigned the influencer rollout. At 3 a.m., while half the city slept, they submitted the final strategy doc. The next morning, Alina called for a team meeting. The lights dimmed in the main conference room. Alina stood at the front, flanked by her top executives. "We were down, one of our best. But this team stepped up," she said. "They delivered. Fast, clean, and smart." She turned slightly, eyes falling on Jason. "Even people I never thought I'd see here again." "Surprised me." Jason sat upright. She smiled faintly. "Redemption is earned, not handed out. And you're earning it." For the first time, he didn't feel like the guy who got laughed at in the cafe. He felt like someone climbing back up, one rough rung at a time. But something still lingered in his mind. A question he hadn't dared ask yet. Had Alina truly forgiven him? Or was this just her way of teaching him a lesson he'd never forget? Alina leaned over the railing of the office terrace, staring down at the flickering city lights. The buzz of the building felt miles away. In her hand was a small ceramic cup, filled with the same cheap green tea she used to drink in her shoebox apartment. Back when her dreams barely paid for groceries. She sipped slowly, letting the bitterness ground her. Jason was changing. That much she could admit. The arrogant boy who once called her a charity case in lipstick was now the man staying late, lifting his team, asking real questions instead of assuming he already had the answers. And the part that unnerved her, the most, she didn't hate him anymore. She wanted to. God, she should have. After everything. The way he humiliated her. The way he made her feel like wanting more made her laughable. She still remembered how he smirked the night she told him she'd own a media company one day. Alina, he'd said, sipping craft beer and half listening. You're sweet, but come on. That kind of thing isn't for girls like you. She'd laughed along with him, at herself, then cried in the bathroom later. But now she stood at the top of the tower she'd built, and the very man who mocked her was helping mop the floor she ruled. Life had its ways of folding back on itself. Still, forgiveness wasn't a door you opened just because someone knocked politely. Her phone buzzed on the table. A message from Darius. Carter's been asking to present the final version of the product pitch to the client directly. Says he has a fresh angle. You want to hear it first? She stared at the screen. Fresh angle or fresh ego? The old Jason loved the sound of his own voice, but this new version, maybe he'd earned the mic. She typed back, let him pitch, but I'll be there. Jason stood in the small pitch room, palms damp, heart racing. Across the table sat two clients from the fashion tech startup they'd been rebuilding the campaign for. Next to them, Alina, stone-faced, arms crossed, unreadable. This was it. He clicked the remote and the first slide flicked onto the screen. Hi, I'm Jason Carter, he began. This campaign's more than just numbers and reach. It's about identity. People don't just wear clothes anymore. They wear statements. So we designed this rollout not around influencers with followers, but voices, activists, designers, real people who live what the brand preaches. He moved through slides, one by one. Clear, focused, no fluff. He spoke with conviction, not desperation. And Alina? She watched. Silent, sharp. But when one of the clients smiled and nodded, she noticed. He wasn't just surviving anymore. He was leading. When the pitch ended, there was a beat of silence. Then the client said, that was exactly what we've been missing. Jason exhaled. The clients left, impressed. The room slowly cleared out. But Alina stayed behind. Jason turned to her. I know you probably expected me to blow that. She studied him. No. I was curious if you'd make it about you, like you used to. You didn't. I'm not who I was. Maybe not. There was a pause, thick with all the years between them. I was awful to you, he said suddenly. I know you don't owe me anything. But I mean it. I was cruel, dismissive. I didn't just doubt you. I enjoyed making you feel small. She blinked, caught off guard by his honesty. I used to think I was better because I had money, connections, comfort. But I see now. Those things made me lazy, not strong. He took a breath. You fought. Built something from nothing. You didn't just prove me wrong. You proved yourself right. That's power. Real power. For a moment, Alina didn't speak. Her chest tightened in a way she hadn't expected. Not with anger. Not even pride. Just closure. She looked at him. Really looked. You want me to forgive you? He didn't flinch. I want you to believe I've changed. Forgiveness, that's your choice. She nodded slowly. I believe you're trying. And, with that, she turned and walked out, heels echoing against the glass tiles. It wasn't an apology accepted, but it wasn't rejection either. It was a crack in the wall she'd built. 2 days later, Clara burst into Alina's office holding a tablet. "You need to see this." She handed it over. A social post had gone viral. A side-by-side before and after photo of Alina and Jason. Left, a grainy photo from their college days. Him in a sports jacket, her in a thrift store hoodie. Right. A photo someone snapped from the recent pitch. Her in a sharp blazer, standing tall behind a seated Jason. Caption, "From you'll never be anything to she's my CEO now." The comments section was on fire. Thousands of shares, memes, quotes, people rooting for Alina, some dragging Jason, others relating to him. Clara grinned. "We didn't post this. Someone from the team must have. But it's wildfire now. You're trending." Alina stared at it. The irony was rich. All her years trying to prove she could do it, and now strangers were doing the storytelling for her. Let it ride, she said. That night, she sat at home with her laptop open, watching the reactions pour in. A DM came through from a girl she didn't know. "Thank you for this. I'm the poor girl right now, but you just made me believe I don't have to stay here forever." Alina closed her eyes, the words echoing somewhere deeper than any headline ever had. Maybe this wasn't just her story anymore. Maybe this was for every woman who'd been told to stay small. The next morning, Jason walked into the office like he was holding his breath. It had been less than 24 hours since that viral post flooded the internet. At first, he didn't even know why his phone was blowing up. Then he saw it. The old college photo. The meme. "She's his CEO now." Thousands of comments. Millions of views. He wasn't mad. Not exactly. But the feeling sat heavy in his stomach. Like the world had cracked him open and handed out pieces. He passed by a couple of interns whispering, not even trying to hide it. "Is that the ex?" "Yeah. The one who told her she'd never make it." Damn. The internet's tearing him apart. Jason kept his head down. He deserved it. He knew that. But the truth still stung more than the lie would have. Alina was in the boardroom already, standing in front of the whiteboard as if the entire internet hadn't just plastered her face on every social feed. She looked collected, calm, dangerous, in the way only a woman in complete control can be. The meeting started with budget reviews, launch timelines, regional ad spends. Then it shifted. Jonas, the oldest board member, silver hair, no patience. Cleared his throat. "Alina," he said, "this viral situation. It's impressive, I'll give you that. But let's not pretend it's all good press." Alina tilted her head slightly. "How so?" "Well, we've had a dozen interview requests since last night. 5 podcasts, a streaming docuseries offer. Suddenly, everyone wants a bite of your personal history. This could get messy." Jason felt every pair of eyes sneak glances at him. He became hyper-aware of how loud his own breathing was. Jonas continued. "More importantly, investors are asking questions about company culture, HR power dynamics, whether the ex you now employ was brought on for redemption or revenge." Alina didn't flinch. "Jason Carter earned his role. You all voted yes after reviewing his performance metrics." Another board member, Dahlia, leaned forward. "Yes, but the optics, Alina. It looks like the villain came crawling back to the queen he once mocked. And she gave him a job." Jason's jaw tightened. He wanted to speak, defend himself. But what could he say? "I understand the concern," Alina replied, calm but firm. "But the story isn't one of revenge. It's about evolution. People change, including me." Jonas scoffed. Still, perception drives narrative. And right now, The narrative is emotional drama. If it continues, you'll have to consider what sacrifices need to be made for the health of the brand. The word sacrifices landed like a punch in the gut. Alina's eyes didn't leave Jonas's. Are you asking me to fire someone based on internet gossip? Jason stared at the table. She didn't say his name, but everyone in that room knew who the target was. Jonas gave a casual shrug. I'm saying you built this company with precision. Don't let emotions dilute that edge. After the meeting, the room emptied out slowly. Jason stayed behind, unsure if he should say something or just disappear. Alina stood across from him, arms folded. Her eyes softened, just a little. You okay? She asked. He nodded, unsure if it was a lie. I didn't mean for that post to explode like this, he muttered. And I sure as hell didn't want to become a PR liability. You're not, she said. Not to me. Jason let out a quiet breath. But maybe to the board. Alina walked over to the window. Do you know what they said about me when I started this company? He shook his head. They called me a diversity gimmick with a decent pitch deck. Said I wouldn't survive 6 months. Then I made it a year, then 2. And then they called me lucky. Only when I hit 8 figures did they start calling me a leader. She turned to face him. Let them talk. Just do your job so well they choke on their predictions. Jason felt something shift in his chest. Respect. Deeper than before. Why did you defend me in there? He asked. You didn't have to. She looked him in the eye. Because I don't repeat your mistakes. I don't crush people to look strong. Then she walked away. Jason stood there for a while, staring at the empty room. For the first time, he felt the true weight of what he'd done back then. Not just to Alina, but to everyone he used to treat as beneath him. The difference now? He didn't want pity. He wanted penance. Later that evening, Jason opened up his LinkedIn. He typed slowly, every word measured. Years ago, I said things I'm not proud of. I dismissed a girl who dreamed big. Because I couldn't imagine a world where someone like her could surpass someone like me. Now, she's my boss, my mentor. My reminder that power built from scratch will always outrank power handed over. I'm not here to ask for applause, just accountability. Growth starts with owning your past and earning your future. He hit post and let the silence swallow him. This time, he didn't check the likes. He just sat back and waited. So far, Alina's stood her ground, faced down the board, and made it clear that growth deserves space, even when the internet demands. Blood. But standing for someone else's redemption always has a price. And sometimes, the very people you protect might not be the ones who stay loyal. This part? It's about betrayal, but not from the person you'd expect. The backlash didn't disappear, but it cooled. Alina's statement had gone out, and though some people dragged her for it, others praised her leadership. Grace under fire, some called it. She's the future of what second chances should look like, but the board wasn't so easily soothed. That Friday, an emergency meeting was called. Jason wasn't invited. Alina stepped into the glass-walled conference room to find them all waiting. Jonas, Dahlia, Clara, even the junior investor from Tokyo who never said much but always took notes. Everyone wore the same expression, tired, cautious, and a little too polite. Jonas opened the floor. We appreciate your transparency, Alina, but it's time we address the bigger concern. She raised an eyebrow. Which is? Your judgment, he said plainly. This isn't just about Jason. It's about the decisions you're making. Emotionally, not strategically. Clara cleared her throat, shifting uncomfortably. They're suggesting a vote. Alina blinked. On what? One, whether you remain as CEO. The words hit like a slap. She laughed once, soft, sharp. You're staging a coup. No, Dahlia cut in. We're ensuring the company survives. Your stance on redemption is admirable. But you've turned this business into your own personal redemption arc. We've weathered storms before. This isn't about Jason. It's about how tied you've become to him. Alina's hands curled into fists under the table. Let me be clear, she said quietly. You didn't care about his past when he was bringing in results. You didn't question my leadership when we landed 3 major contracts under my strategy. But the moment your reputations felt shaky, you turned on me. No one responded. But Clara wouldn't meet her eyes. And that's when it hit Alina. It wasn't Jonas who'd leaked the internal pressure. It wasn't Dahlia. It was Clara, her friend, her right hand, her college roommate who once cried with her in a shared dorm over cheap noodles and unpaid bills. Clara had been feeding information to the investors behind her back. Alina looked at her, really looked. You're the one who forwarded that post to the investors, aren't you? She said, voice calm but ice cold. Clara hesitated for half a second too long. Then, I did what I had to. For the company. Alina smiled. Not from humor, but from clarity. No, you did what you had to for your position. You just hoped I'd be too loyal to call you out. Jonas interrupted, impatient. Look, this doesn't have to be messy. Step down for 6 months. Let Clara act as interim. We'll revisit your role after the dust settles. Alina stood. She didn't argue, didn't yell. Just said, no. Jonas blinked. Excuse me? I won't step down. Not now, not ever. You want me gone? Vote. But I promise you, if you oust me for defending someone's growth, while half of you have skeletons you pay PR firms to keep buried, I'll take this company's entire origin story public. Dahlia narrowed her eyes. Is that a threat? No, Alina said, heading for the door. It's a fact. I built this place from nothing. Don't ever forget that. As she left, she didn't look back, because in that moment, she understood something deeper than betrayal or politics. Power doesn't come from the title. It comes from knowing they need you more than you need them. Jason was sitting alone in the rooftop garden when she found him. You should hear what they just tried to pull, she said, sitting beside him. He looked up, eyes tired. Let me guess, they want you out? Almost, she said. But they blinked. A silence settled between them. The kind that felt full, like both were thinking the same thing but too cautious to say it. Then Jason asked, why did you keep defending me? Alina looked out at the city lights. Because I wanted to believe. People change. And I hoped that by saving you, I was saving something in myself too. Jason nodded slowly. And now I realize saving someone doesn't mean letting them stay. He blinked. What do you mean? Alina turned to face him. I'm not firing you, Jason. But I am asking you to resign. Quietly. With grace. Before this becomes a war. Neither of us can afford. Jason's throat tightened. You're serious? I am. He stood slowly. I thought I was earning back your trust. You were, she said. But that was never the problem. The problem is, your presence here is now a distraction. It's no longer about growth. It's about noise. And I built this place to rise above noise. Jason swallowed hard, emotions tangled in his chest. He didn't beg. He didn't fight. He simply nodded, because for once he knew she was right. And maybe this, walking away, quietly, on someone else's terms, was the final piece of his redemption. Jason is gone. Alina is standing taller than ever, but victory rarely feels like what you expect, and in the quiet that follows, power reclaimed, there's one more truth to face. Not everything broken needs to be fixed. Sometimes it just needs to be left behind. 3 weeks after Jason submitted his resignation, the office felt quieter. Not tense, not heavy, just a little emptier, like a room after a storm. The kind where the air is finally still, but the walls still remember the shaking. Alina didn't talk about him. Not to the board, not to the staff, not even to herself. She buried herself in restructuring, in silent meetings with PR, in restoring her vision back to what it was before all this mess. Clean, driven, and unapologetically hers. She expected peace to follow. But what she got was loneliness. Not the kind that comes from missing someone. The kind that comes from realizing no one else had seen all of her the way Jason eventually had, even if he was the wrong man, even if he once mocked her. In the end, he'd looked at her and understood. That was the part that hurt. She didn't want him back. She just didn't want to be alone in the memory of who she used to be. 1. Friday evening, as she prepared to leave the office late, Clara showed up at her door. Alina looked up, unsurprised. Clara held a folder in her hands. "I want to fix it," she said quietly. "You already did," Alina replied, typing without looking up. "You handed over your position on the ethics board and stepped down from media outreach. That was the deal." Clara shifted awkwardly. "That's not what I meant." Alina finally looked at her. "Then what did you mean?" "I want to fix us," Clara said. A pause. "I know I broke your trust, and I don't expect things to go back to what they were. But I don't want to lose everything we built just because I got scared and sold you out to people who never deserved your loyalty." Alina stood, walked around the desk, and leaned on the edge, arms folded. "You were supposed to be the one person I never had to worry about," she said. "You knew what it felt like to be counted out, to be humiliated, to scrape for scraps, and smile anyway." "I forgot that," Clara said. "And I'm sorry. I saw how close you were getting to Jason again, and I panicked. I thought if he brought you down, we'd all fall with you." Alina nodded slowly. "Fear doesn't make betrayal easier," she said. "It just makes it more understandable." She didn't say anything for a long moment after that. Then, "We won't go back. But maybe. We move forward. One cautious, honest step at a time." Clara smiled. Not wide. Just enough to mean it. "I'll take that." The next week, Alina found a package on her desk. No label, no note. Just her name in messy pen across a matte black envelope. She opened it carefully. Inside was a letter and a tiny flash drive. The letter was handwritten. Simple. "From Jason, Alina, I figured you'd never answer my texts again, so here's something a little more old school. I know I don't belong in your world anymore, and I'm not asking to, but I left behind something that might help you, or at least something that should have been yours from the beginning. On the drive is a full list of investors I brought in. The real ones, not the ones I cherry-picked for my own benefit. Most of them never got the chance to meet you because I thought they wouldn't get your vision. Truth is, I was just scared they'd see you and realize you didn't need me at all. You were never the poor girl who needed a break. You were always the force that broke through. I hope the silence that follows my exit gives you peace. But if it ever gives you loneliness, know this. Even if I don't deserve to be part of your story anymore, I will always be proud I once was." Jelena didn't cry. She didn't smile either. She just stared at the words for a long time, letting the weight of them settle. And then, with slow fingers, she plugged in the flash drive. New investors, big names, high-value networks, all passed over before, but now they come running. She closed the laptop after skimming the list. She didn't need their money, but she'd take their attention. 6 months later, her company tripled in valuation. the press stopped asking about Jason. Her board, now carefully reshaped, stood behind her with full support. And one late afternoon, standing alone in the penthouse conference room, she looked at the skyline and remembered how far she'd come. No one mocked her anymore. No one dared whisper, "Charity hire." Behind her back, she was CEO in every bone, every breath, every headline. She didn't need revenge. She had legacy. And as the sunset lit up the windows around her, Alina whispered two simple words to herself. Not for him. Not for anyone. Just for the girl she used to be. I won.